For a moment after the slap, there was complete silence. The billionaire, Adrian Blackwood, staggered backward, his expensive sunglasses falling to the pavement. At that exact second, the speeding car roared past the spot where he had been standing just a heartbeat earlier. It crashed into a streetlight with a deafening bang. Smoke filled the air. People gasped. If she hadn't hit him, he would have been gone. The young maid stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She hadn't planned it. She hadn't even thought about who he was. She had simply seen danger and reacted. Security guards rushed forward, surrounding Adrian immediately. One of them grabbed the maid's arm. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he shouted. The crowd began murmuring again. Some pulled out their phones. Others stared at the girl's bare feet and worn dress, as if trying to understand how someone so small and unnoticed could change something so big. Adrian slowly straightened up. His cheek was red from the slap. For a second, his expression looked furious. After all, no one had ever dared to touch him like that before. But then he turned toward the wrecked car. Reality sank in. He looked back at the maid, really looked at her this time. She couldn't have been more than 20. There was fear in her eyes now, not bravery. She probably thought she was about to lose her job, or worse. "What's your name?" Adrian asked quietly. The security guards froze. The crowd leaned in closer. "S. Sophia," she replied, her voice trembling. "You saved my life, Sophia," he said. Those words sent a wave through the crowd. The same people who had been whispering criticism moments earlier now looked at her with respect. An ambulance arrived for the driver of the crashed car. Police officers began asking questions. Reporters, who had been nearby, covering a business event, rushed over when they realized who was involved. Cameras flashed. Adrian did something no one expected. He took off his suit jacket, worth more than Sophia probably earned in months, and gently placed it around her shoulders. "Make sure she's okay," he told his security team, "and no one touches her without my permission." The guards immediately stepped back. Later that evening, the story exploded across news channels and social media. Headlines read, "Maid slaps billionaire to save his life," and "The unexpected hero of Manhattan." But what truly shocked everyone happened the next day. Adrian invited Sophia to his corporate headquarters. Employees watched in disbelief as the same girl they might have ignored on the street walked through the glass doors beside him. In front of his executive board, he told the full story. "Yesterday," he said, "a young woman with nothing to gain risked everything to save a man she didn't even know. That is courage. That is character." Then he turned to Sophia. "I built my empire on power," he continued. "But yesterday, I learned something about humanity." He offered her a full scholarship for education, a new position in his company, not as a maid, but as a trainee in his foundation, and support for her family. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. The crowd outside the building cheered when they heard the news. One fearless slap had not only saved a life, it had changed two forever. And in the heart of Manhattan, people learned that heroes don't always wear suits. Sometimes they walk barefoot. Her name was Laila, a 19-year-old girl from a small village in Pakistan, where dusty roads stretched for miles and dreams often felt bigger than opportunities. She had grown up in a modest mud brick home with her parents and 3 younger siblings. Her father, once a hard-working farmer, had fallen ill, and the responsibility of supporting the family slowly shifted onto her shoulders. With tears in her mother's eyes and hope in her heart, Laila left her village for the city. She had never seen buildings so tall or streets so crowded. Everything felt overwhelming, but she reminded herself why she had come: to earn, to survive, and to give her family a better future. After weeks of searching, she found work as a maid in one of Adrian Blackwood's luxurious Manhattan apartments. The place was bigger than her entire village street. Marble floors, glittering chandeliers, and rooms filled with art pieces worth more than she could imagine. Yet, despite the beauty around her, her own life was far from glamorous. She worked from early morning until late at night, cleaning, cooking, organizing, and making sure everything was perfect. She lived in a tiny storage-like room at the back of the apartment. Some nights, exhaustion was her only dinner. Still, she never complained. Every dollar she earned, she sent back home. Laila was quiet but observant. She noticed how powerful people lived, how they walked with confidence, how others stepped aside for them. The billionaire she worked for was rarely home, but when he was, the atmosphere changed. Staff moved faster. Security tightened. Conversations lowered. To him, she was invisible, just another maid. But Laila never allowed bitterness to grow in her heart. Her mother had always told her, respect is not about what people give you. It's about what you choose to give others. She carried those words like a shield. That afternoon, when chaos erupted on the street, she had only stepped outside to throw away trash. The city noise was normal to her now. Honking cars, rushing crowds. But then she saw it. The speeding car. The billionaire standing frozen in the middle of the road, distracted by his phone. In that split second, Laila didn't see a billionaire. She didn't see a powerful man who barely knew her name. She saw a human life about to end. Her heart pounded, but her feet moved faster than her thoughts. She ran, and she slapped him, not out of disrespect, not out of anger, but out of urgency. The sound echoed louder than the traffic. The crowd gasped. For a brief moment, she feared she had destroyed her future. Losing her job would mean no money for her father's medicine, no school fees for her siblings. But if she had stood still, she would have carried regret for the rest of her life. The slap was more than a reaction. It was a statement. It was proof that courage doesn't depend on status. It doesn't ask about wealth. It simply acts when needed. Laila had risked everything in a city where she owned nothing. And in doing so, she reminded everyone watching that true power doesn't come from money or influence. It comes from the bravery to do what is right, even when the world might punish you for it. Within minutes, the video was everywhere. Someone from the cafe had captured the entire moment. The speeding car, the slap, the billionaire stumbling backward, and the crash that followed. By evening, it had millions of views. By midnight, it had taken over every major social media platform. Hashtags trended across countries. Hashtag Maid Hero. Hashtag Slap for Life. Hashtag Fearless Laila. People replayed the clip again and again, analyzing every second. Some slowed it down to show how close the car had been. Others zoomed in on Laila's expression, the raw fear mixed with determination. Memes flooded the internet. Some joked that slap was worth billions. Others posted dramatic edits with heroic music in the background. Artists began sketching digital portraits of Laila, barefoot and brave, standing like a symbol of courage against a chaotic city. News anchors called it the slap that saved a life. Talk shows debated it intensely. Was it disrespect? One panelist asked. Or was it pure instinct? Another argued. Some critics said she had crossed a line. There are boundaries, they claimed. No employee should raise a hand to her employer. A few even suggested she should face consequences for physical contact, regardless of the reason. But the majority disagreed. She saved him, people wrote in comment sections. If she hadn't acted, we'd be talking about a tragedy. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw a human being. Across Pakistan, the story spread like wildfire. In her small village, neighbors gathered around a single smartphone to watch the viral clip. Her mother, overwhelmed with emotion, whispered prayers of gratitude. Her younger siblings proudly told everyone, "That's our sister." Meanwhile, on that busy Manhattan street, reality still felt heavy. Paramedics carefully checked Adrian Blackwood for injuries. Aside from shock and a reddened cheek, he was physically fine. But mentally, he was shaken. He had faced business rivals, financial crashes, and aggressive negotiations without blinking. Yet today, for the first time in years, he had come face to face with his own vulnerability. As he sat on the ambulance step, he looked up. There she was. Laila stood a short distance away, surrounded by strangers holding phones. She looked smaller now. The same girl who had acted without hesitation was trembling. Her hands shook slightly at her sides. Her eyes were wide, not with pride, but with fear. She didn't look like a hero. She looked like a girl worried she had just ruined her life. Their eyes met. In his gaze, there was confusion, perhaps even wounded pride. No one had ever dared to strike him. He was a man used to control, to respect, to distance. But beneath the surprise and the sting of ego, something else flickered. Respect. He replayed the moment in his mind. The blur of movement, the force that pushed him back, the deafening crash just inches away. He realized something powerful. She hadn't hesitated. She hadn't calculated the risks. She hadn't thought about status. She had simply acted, not for attention, not for reward, but to save him. The crowd continued buzzing around them, reporters inching closer, microphones stretching forward. "Sir, how do you feel about being slapped by your maid?" The words hung in the air. Laila lowered her eyes. "I was only doing what anyone would do," she said softly. Richard shook his head. "No, not anyone would. Many people saw the car. You were the only one who moved." He walked to his desk and picked up a tablet. On the screen were headlines, videos, and messages from people around the world. "For days, I've watched the world debate your action," he continued. "Some call it disrespect. Others call it bravery. But I call it something else." He looked at her again. Integrity. He admitted something few expected from a man of his stature. "For years, I've lived in a world built on money and influence. People respect me because they fear losing something. But you acted when you had everything to lose." Laila felt her throat tighten. "That moment changed me," Richard said quietly. "It forced me to see how disconnected I've become from real courage." Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were documents outlining a full scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities in the country. Tuition, housing, books, fully covered. There was also an offer for a safe, comfortable apartment and a position within his foundation, where she could work while studying and grow based on her abilities, not her background. "I don't want to reward you," he clarified. "I want to invest in you. You have strength and character that this company needs." Tears welled up in Laila's eyes. She had come to the city hoping only to survive. She had never imagined sitting in a billionaire's office discussing education and opportunity. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Richard replied with a faint smile. For the first time since arriving in the city, Laila felt the weight of fear lift from her shoulders. That single, fearless act had not only saved a life. It had opened a door to a future she never dared to dream of. The words hung in the air. Laila lowered her eyes. "I was only doing what anyone would do," she said softly. Richard shook his head. "No, not anyone would. Many people saw the car. You were the only one who moved." He walked to his desk and picked up a tablet. On the screen were headlines, videos, and messages from people around the world. "For days, I've watched the world debate your action," he continued. "Some call it disrespect. Others call it bravery. But I call it something else." He looked at her again. Integrity. He admitted something few expected from a man of his stature. "For years, I've lived in a world built on money and influence. People respect me because they fear losing something. But you acted when you had everything to lose." Laila felt her throat tighten. "That moment changed me," Richard said quietly. "It forced me to see how disconnected I've become from real courage." Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were documents outlining a full scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities in the country. Tuition, housing, books, fully covered. There was also an offer for a safe, comfortable apartment and a position within his foundation, where she could work while studying and grow based on her abilities, not her background. "I don't want to reward you," he clarified. "I want to invest in you. You have strength and character that this company needs." Tears welled up in Laila's eyes. She had come to the city hoping only to survive. She had never imagined sitting in a billionaire's office discussing education and opportunity. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Richard replied with a faint smile. For the first time since arriving in the city, Laila felt the weight of fear lift from her shoulders. That single, fearless act had not only saved a life. It had opened a door to a future she never dared to dream of. Laila's life changed in ways she could never have imagined. But the biggest transformation wasn't the apartment, the scholarship, or the new job title. It was her voice. Within weeks, invitations poured in from universities, community organizations, and international conferences. People didn't just want to meet the maid who slapped a billionaire. They wanted to hear her perspective. They wanted to understand what gave her the courage to act without hesitation. At first, standing on a stage felt more terrifying than running into traffic. But Laila spoke the same way she had lived. Honestly, I didn't see a billionaire, she told one audience. I saw a life in danger. Courage isn't about being powerful. It's about making a choice in one small moment. Her words resonated far beyond Manhattan. In villages across Pakistan, parents told their daughters about her bravery. In crowded city schools, teachers played the viral clip and asked students what they would have done. Social media slowly shifted from memes to meaningful conversations about dignity, equality, and humanity. Laila became a symbol, not of rebellion, but of integrity. Meanwhile, Richard Vanderbilt was undergoing a transformation of his own. For years, he had built his empire with sharp instincts and relentless ambition. He had believed that success was measured in numbers, net worth, market share, influence. But nearly losing his life forced him to confront something deeper. He began restructuring parts of his company, not for profit, but for purpose. He expanded his foundation, focusing on education for underprivileged youth, fair wages for workers, and support systems for immigrants chasing better futures. When reporters asked him what sparked the change, he didn't give a corporate answer. A 19-year-old girl reminded me what courage looks like. He said simply. He made it clear that his support for Laila wasn't charity. It was recognition. Talent and integrity exist everywhere, he told his executives. Opportunity does not. That's what must change. Back at university, Laila immersed herself in her studies. She chose to focus on social development and business ethics, determined to understand how systems could be improved for people like her family back home. Despite her growing fame, she remained grounded. She still called her mother every evening. She still sent money home. She still remembered the tiny room where she once fell asleep exhausted after long shifts. The difference now was that she had a platform, and she used it wisely. She started a mentorship initiative for young domestic workers, helping them access education and legal protection. She visited communities quietly, often without media, listening more than she spoke. The world had tried to define her by one slap, but she proved she was far more than a viral moment. Years later, people still talked about that afternoon in Manhattan. The screeching tires, the echo of a fearless act, the crash that never became tragedy. The city never forgot, because that day wasn't just about a billionaire saved from death. It was about a reminder that heroes don't always wear uniforms. They don't always have titles. Sometimes, they are young women with tired hands and brave hearts. And sometimes, a single moment of courage can send ripples across the world, changing not only one life, but countless others who dare to believe that doing the right thing is always worth the risk.